be blessed at New Testament. Experience the anointing of Jesus Christ, God's only Son. Come rejoice in His name and hear the word of God proclaimed. Come and be blessed at New Testament.
Grace and peace to you, and welcome to the Living by the Word broadcast. Today, I want to continue to talk to you about reasons God permits evil. Now, there's evil in the world for two main reasons: sin and Satan. And sin simply is doing what God said not to do or failing to do what God said do. That's a simple definition of sin. And many of the problems in the world today are symptoms of someone's sins. And so we have evil in the world today because of sin and Satan. Now, why does God permit evil? Today, we want to look at another reason, and that is sometimes God permits evil or problems to draw to Himself. And it is true that the same situation that draws one to God may drive another from God. But we're going to look today at Amos chapter 4, verses 6 through 11. And we want to look at some of the things that God permitted or produced to draw His people back to Him. They had drifted away. And so all the things that are mentioned here, God really takes responsibility for all of them. Because even the things that He permitted or things that He produced, either way, whether He permitted it or whether He produced it, the fact that He permitted it, He still takes responsibility for it. Listen to Amos chapter 4, verses 6 through 11, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation. I brought hunger to every city and famine to every town, but still you wouldn't return to me, says the Lord. I kept the rain from falling when you needed it most, ruining all of your crops. I sent rain on one town, but withheld it from another. Rain fell on one field, while another field withered away. People staggered from one town to another for a drink of water, but there was never enough. But still, you wouldn't return to me, says the Lord. I struck your farms and your vineyards with blight and mildew. Locusts devoured all your figs and olive trees, but still, you wouldn't return to me, says the Lord. I sent plagues against you, like the plagues I sent against Egypt long ago. I killed your young men in war and slaughtered all your horses. The stench of death filled the air, but still, you wouldn't return to me, says the Lord. I destroyed some of your cities as I destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Those of you who survived were like half-burned sticks snatched from a fire. But still, you wouldn't return to me, says the Lord. And then in verses 12 and 13, God says that He's going to come to them in judgment because they did not recognize, repent, and return to Him. Now let's just notice some of the things that God produced, or if you prefer, permitted. God does take responsibility for these things. But let's just notice the first one is famine in verse 6. I brought hunger to every city and famine in every town, but still you wouldn't return to me. And as you read through the Bible, you'll find that God used famine in some cases, as here, to draw and also to warn. God is seeking to draw his people back to him. They've drifted away, and he is also warning them. And you'll find, if you study famines in the Bible, you'll see that famine were used by God to draw, as here, and to warn. Famines were used to discipline. They were used to direct. God used the famine to direct Jacob and his family down to Egypt. It was a famine that God used to get them in Egypt, where he developed the nation. And sometimes famines were used to discipline and to judge. We tend to drift away from God. And sometimes God allows difficulties in our lives, problems in our lives, to draw us back when we drift away. And there are many who came to God and came to saving faith because of a difficulty in their lives. And sometimes God uses difficulties to draw us to him to be saved. And sometimes when we drift away, you may be, right now, you may have drifted away. You've gotten away from your time with God. You've gotten away from your worship of God. You've gotten away from your value of God. You've gotten away from your praise of God. You've gotten away from reading the Word of God. And many times when we drift away from God, we're doing good things. We're not doing bad things. We're doing good things, but we're not doing the most important thing. The most important part of your day and my day is time spent with God. Quality time spent with God is never wasted. I never cease to be amazed at the things that God shows me, the things that he impresses upon me, how to solve problems, what to do, when to do it, what to say, and how to say it, and when to say it. God directs me in all of those areas when I spend quality time with him. And yet, I have to fight for my time with God because there's just so many good things that I'm drawn to. There's so many good things that pull me away. There's so many good things that I'd like to do. And sometimes I do those good things. And you know, when I drift away, it's always because of some good things that I'm doing, but not the most important thing. Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things will be added unto you. Matthew 22, the greatest of all the commandments is to love God with all that is within us. And, you know, God holds our very breath in his hands. He can stop us from breathing at any time. Daniel chapter 5, Luke chapter 12, many other places. He holds our very breath in his hand. And, you know, when we don't have time for God, we're too busy. When we're too busy for God, we're too busy. The rich fool in Luke. Read about him. And so, the people, this is the northern kingdom. Amos is preaching to the northern kingdom. And they've drifted away from God. And God is doing these various things, permitting them, if you'd like, to draw his people back to him. Listen to what God says to his people in Amos chapter 5. Notice verse 5. Well, let's look at verse 4. Now, this is what the Lord says to the family of Israel. This is the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom was referred to as Israel. After the dividing of the kingdoms, the southern kingdom was referred to as Judah, Jerusalem being the capital. The northern kingdom was referred to as Israel, and also Ephraim. The capital was Samaria. Now, this is what the Lord says to the family of Israel. Come back to me and live. Don't go to worship the idols of Bethel, Gilgal, and Beersheba. For the people of Gilgal will be dragged off into exile, and the people of Bethel will come to nothing. Come back to the Lord and live. Come back to the Lord and live. And God said to the southern kingdom through Jeremiah, the southern kingdom did the same thing. They drifted away from God. And God said in Jeremiah 2:13, my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living water. And they've hewed out for themselves cisterns that can't hold water. The southern kingdom drifted away also. And in Revelation chapter 2, Jesus said to the church at Ephesus, he said to the church at Ephesus, first of all, he complimented them for some things that they were doing right. And he went on and on and on with praise. And then in chapter 2, verse 4 of Revelation, Jesus said, but I have something against you. You're doing all of these good things. You're doing a lot of good things, but I've got something against you. And that is, you have left your first love. Recognize, repent, and return. We tend to drift away from God. And I have a lot of favorite hymns. And one is Come Thy Fount. Come Thy Fount of every blessing. Tune my heart to sing thy grace. Come thou fount of every blessing. Tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy, never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise his name, I'm fixed up on it. The name, God's name of redeeming love. And then, oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy goodness like a fetter bind my wondering heart to thee. Prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above. I love that hymn because it speaks of all of us. Our hearts are prone to wonder, prone to leave the God we love. And as you read the book of Judges, there's a cycle. God would raise up a judge, And after that judge would die, it would be the death of the judge. Then what would follow would be disobedience to God. The people would disobey God, they'd drift away from God, and then God would permit difficulties. God would raise up an enemy or permit an enemy to attack his people, to draw them back. And so they would be attacked. And the Midianites, for example, the Philistines and so on. And then they would become desperate and they would repent. They'd recognize, they would repent, they would return to God. And then God would forgive their sins and God would raise up a deliverer. Like Gideon or Samson. And after the death of the judge, the process, it would start all over again. And you see this cycle throughout Judges. There's a passage that says the people, they didn't have a king. Everybody did what was right in his own eyes. But I love this book because it really describes us. And in the book, it's people just like us. Elijah, for example, the Bible says he was a man of like passions, like as we are, and he prayed. He was just like us. He became fearful like us. And imagine this, Elijah, he goes to Ahab in chapter 17 of 1 Kings, and the people had been worshiping idols, and they had drifted away from God, and Ahab and Jezebel were responsible for a lot of this, and Baal, the god that they were worshiping, was supposed to be a god that controlled the crops, that controlled the rain, that controlled the weather. And God directed Elijah to go and say to Ahab, it's not going to be any rain these next few years except by my word. We're going to see who controls the weather. Not only is it not going to be any rain, it's not going to even be any dew. You're going to find out that Baal is not in control of the weather. And then God said to Elijah, now go hide yourself by the brook. And Elijah did not know what was going to happen. God's will is a step-by-step process. When you obey step one, God will tell you step two. Many of us don't get in motion because we want to know what step two is. And Elijah, after he told the king and the queen what God wanted him to tell them, God said, now go hide yourself by the brook. Kerith or Kirith. I'm going to take care of you by the brook. You're going to drink from the brook, and the ravens are going to bring you food, 2 meals a day. Interesting to note, whenever God fed somebody in the Bible, it was 2 meals. The Hebrews, when they came out of Egypt, the manna, it was given to them twice a day. Elijah, 2 meals by the brook. And when he was running from Jezebel, again, it was 2 meals. And I'm not preaching 2 meals a day, but it's very interesting to know that when God fed somebody in the Bible, it was always 2 meals. Well, anyway, God took care of Elijah by the brook. A day came when the brook dried up, and then he went to Zarephath. But this is what I want you to see as humanity, is that he prays for God to shut up the heavens. God shuts up the heaven. And then he has this contest with the prophets of Baal, and he prays, and fire falls down. A widow woman, her son dies. He prays, and the child is resurrected or resuscitated. And then, after he has this contest with the prophets of Baal, he slays the prophets of Baal, and Jezebel sends him a note that she's going to kill him. He's on her hit list, and he takes off. He's afraid. I mean, he's human. He's like us. And imagine now, there's a lot of humor in the Bible, but sometimes we miss it. This man has prayed and shut up the heavens. He prayed again, and it rained. He prayed, and a child was resuscitated. He prayed, and fire fell from heaven. And now he gets a note that he's on Jezebel's hit list, and he is terrified, and he takes off, and he gets on a juniper tree, and he's become suicidal. He's depressed, and he says, God, take my life. It's like, kill me. I don't want Jezebel to get to me. And now, here's the humor. Jezebel wants to kill him. He wants to die. I mean, if you want to die, she wants to kill you, why don't you go and say, here I am. Make my day. But he's terrified and he's running. It's like, God, I want to die, but I don't want Jezebel to get me. So, and my point here is that the Bible is people just like us. And I could go on and with examples, and somebody's going to say, why don't you just give a message on that? Okay, someday I will. But God is seeking to draw his people back to him. He wants them to recognize, repent, and return. So that was first famine. And then second, there's drought. There's drought in verses 7 and 8. Verse 7, I kept the rain from falling when you needed it the most, ruining all your crops. I sent rain on one town, but withheld it from another. Rain fell on one field, while another field withered away. People staggered from one town to another for a drink of water, but there was never enough. But still, in spite of all of this, it was designed to draw you back to me. You still did not return to me. You didn't recognize that I was doing these things, or permitted them if you'd like. You know, God controls the weather. God controls the weather. The flood, rain, 40 days, 40 nights. God determined when the rain would start. God determined when the rain would end. God controls the weather. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 17, 28, 23, 24. God there promised to control the weather, and he told his people what he would do if they disobeyed him. Jonah chapter 1, the storm was caused by God in Jonah chapter 1. God controls the weather. God told the storm when to start and when to stop. Job chapter 1. God allowed Satan to control the weather. Satan used a storm to kill the 3 daughters and 7 sons of Job, but Satan could not do what he did with the weather without God's permission. And so sometimes, yes, Satan does do various things with the weather, but Satan cannot do anything with the weather without God's okay. So in the final analysis, God controls the weather. And in, again, 1 Kings, I just mentioned it a while ago. God told Ahab and Jezebel, it's not going to be any rain except by my word. And so for 3.5 years, the heavens were shut up. There was no rain. Luke chapter 4, verse 25, and James chapter 5, verse 17. And then in Mark chapter 4, on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus controlled the storm. There was a storm, and Jesus just said, peace be still. God controls the weather. And sometimes God uses the weather to draw to himself to discipline and sometimes to warn and sometimes to judge. And you know, when God is using the weather to warn, to discipline, or to judge, expect drastic changes in the weather. Expect to hear things like, we've had floods before, but never like this. We have had fires before, but never like this, because when God withholds the rain and you have droughts, you're going to have fires. And when God is judging, warning, or disciplining, you're going to hear things like, we've had fires before, we've never had a fire like this, we've never had fires like this before. We've had tornadoes, but never like this before. Hurricanes and so, but never like this. We've had diseases, but never like this. In other words, listen for those words. You're going to hear them, but never like this. We've had this before, but never like this. Expect that when God is warning, drawing, disciplining, or judging. And you know, when you know the God of the Bible, not the God that many have created in their own image and after their own likeness, but the God of the Bible. When you know the God of the Bible and you know the Bible, you know what to expect. There will be very little that will take you by surprise or that will surprise you. And look for God in everything. God is sovereign at all times and over all things. He's sovereign over the weather. He's sovereign over diseases. He's sovereign over kings. He's sovereign over queens. He's sovereign over all. Daniel 4:35. And all the inhabitants of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say to him, what are you doing?
Thank you for watching another broadcast of Living by the Word with Pastor Malone. Please join us next week for the conclusion of the message, God Permits Evil to Draw. There are several reasons why God may permit evil. You may order Pastor Malone's book, Going Through the Storms of Life, for more detailed reasons as to why God may permit evil. Please go to our website at newtchurch.org to order your copy today.
New Testament Church of Milwaukee is a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church. If you enjoyed today's message and would like to view it again or view previous messages, please visit our website, newtchurch.org, or follow us on Facebook at New Testament Church of Milwaukee. To support our outreach, you can also go to newtchurch.org. May God bless you and keep you safe.